Fabulous. I can see that we've sorted the sound out. Apologies for that. My name is Mindy Close. I'm the Manager of Learning Services here at Equinox IT. And welcome to today's webinar. Today you're going to be hearing from Jasmin Wilkins, who's a Senior Consultant in our Business Change practice here at Equinox IT. Jasmin has over 15 years experience in the IT industry in Wellington. Jasmin was lucky enough to win the annual Equinox IT Scholarship to attend the MIT Centre for Information Systems Research Summer Session. That's a scholarship that's awarded to one of our team here at Equinox IT annually. The MIT Centre for Systems Information Research conducts field-based research on issues related to the management and use of information technology in complex organisations. Its mission is to help executives address the IT-related challenges of leading increasingly dynamic, global and information-intensive organisations. Equinox IT is proudly the only New Zealand-owned consultancy to sponsor MIT Centre for Information Systems Research, and this gives our people and our clients access to up-to-date, up-to-the-minute, in fact, world-class thinking. Now, before I hand over to Jasmin, you will have the opportunity to ask questions during this presentation. A number of you have found the questions box already, so I really appreciate that. Feel free to ask a question at any time. I'll have a read through the question, and if it's appropriate, I'll ask Jasmin to answer the question as we go. And there are some questions that I will hold over to the end. We will have 5 to 10 minutes at the end for your questions. So, Jasmin, welcome.
Thank you, Mindy, and thank you everyone for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share the thinking that's come from having the opportunity to spend 4 days in June participating in the CISR Annual Summer Session at MIT in Boston, Massachusetts. For the sake of simplicity, I will just refer to the Centre for Information Systems Research as CISR from here on in, otherwise we might take a little bit over time. So, during that 4-day period, the faculty presented and discussed current developments in research and concepts relating to IT challenges facing organisations. For our webinar today, I'll give you an overview of 5 of the concepts that we discussed that I think are important to organisations learning to operate to succeed in a digital economy. I'll take about 5 minutes to cover off each idea, so it will be a greatest hits mixtape. And we'll include some reference points at the end of the webinar to give you the opportunity to investigate concepts that resonate for you in more depth. So, concept number 1, the first concept we'll cover is understanding the architectural maturity of your organisation. To operate successfully, you need a digitised platform that fits your organisation. The second concept we'll discuss is identifying the operating model for your organisation or for the part of the organisation you're working with. The answer to the operating model question can help you identify what kind of change is going to work and what kind of digital infrastructure you'll need to support that change. The third concept we're going to discuss is around managing complexity. Today, we'll review a research-based approach to assessing complexity to make sure you're getting value from your IT process and product complexity within your organisation. The fourth concept we'll discuss is how we deliver value. Moving from the plan, build, run way that we deliver IT solutions to enable business activities to a cycle which involves committing, building, running and then exploiting, getting maximum value and strengthening business engagement and determining what we deliver and how we effectively use our IT-enabled capabilities to get maximum value. Finally, the fifth concept that we'll cover off is getting value from data. Exploring data and generating insight is great fun. To deliver value, you need purpose and action and an approach that helps you to get rid of the obstacles that are in the way. And we'll just cover off data in the context of the IT value cycle. There's a lot more that we could discuss there. So finally, we'll put it all together to get a picture of the change context. So if we look at architectural maturity, the operating model that we're working with, the way that we want to manage complexity, we get inputs that help us to determine if we're going to deliver IT value, what kind of change should we commit to, how are we going to build and deliver that, how are we going to use data to inform how we get maximum value from the changes that we're putting through into the business. So we'll cover these off over the next half an hour and talk about how they fit together. First though, I'll just talk about the definition of digitisation. From an MIT CISR perspective, digitisation is the creation of new resources and enriching traditional resources. So here we're talking about adding digital elements and making those resources available digitally. We're talking about a broader range of things as resources than we might normally consider. So we're talking about things like processes, products. We've all probably accessed digital books, movies, music and services by now, data, interactions and relationships and assets. So we're talking about a broad range of resources being digitised and the challenge of total digitisation. So how do we coherently manage a rapid rise in the digitisation of resources to get maximum value in a digital economy? And it's not just IT, we've got a lot of islands of digitisation out there. We've got the stuff we know in IT, the digitised business processes and information. We've also got operations, we've got automation, all the process control, robotics, smart meters, exciting things happening in those areas, knowledge workers generating digital assets, research and development, digital products and design, and we've got all our people-facing customer interaction digitisation. So it is a broad field that we are working with. So let's kick into number one, digital infrastructure. To operate successfully, you need a digitised platform that fits your organisation. So the digitised platform that's going to support operational success depends on how architecturally mature the organisation is. Now, CISR research shows that organisations have been moving across the maturity spectrum between 2007 and 2011. More organisations are becoming highly mature, and also shows those who are building digitised platforms and have good architectural practices are achieving better than average business outcomes. Now let's talk about what we mean when we talk about each of these levels. So first off, business silos. Often in the early stages of an organisation, we're just building point solutions or localised solutions to take advantage of immediate business opportunities or solve normally immediate business problems. And at this point in our maturity, local return on investment is king. It rules everything. We have spiralling IT costs and complexity and issues with reliability as a result of this approach, and this tends to drive the need to go to stage two. When we start to pursue value via IT cost containment and having a really strong focus on reliability. So when we are working here, we need consistent, disciplined processes for delivering value through our plan, build and run value chain, and we need a really tight control over exceptions to standards to make sure we pull ourselves out of our business silos. Once we're getting through this stage, we've got efficient IT with low cost and reliable IT operation, but we're not actually having IT as a strategic asset yet. The next frontier is saying, okay, great, we've got IT operational excellence. What about business operation? And this is the point where we start to have an optimised core. Organisations making decisions about change based on enterprise-wide priorities and now building a well-integrated, packaged or customised core platform that handles their core transactions and or their core processes. Now, banks are a great example of having a head start in this area. Banks have a core transaction platform for their financial transactions, which gives them a head start over everyone else in a digital economy. As you can see, because today, you know, Westpac's out there saying we're going to have 3D interaction around your accounts. So once we've gotten an optimised core, we have business operations supported by a core transactional process platform. The next thing we want to do is maximise value for the organisation with smart reuse. We need to be leveraging the strategic capabilities we have. At this point, we've got business modularity. We're optimising the capabilities of the platform we have. We can deliver speedy products and services. We have excellence in operational and strategic decision making. And at this point, we haven't hit the end. We're not at perfection. What we need to experiment as well off platform to make sure that the disruptive new things that are happening, the trends and technologies are considered, and that we're continuing to develop what we're doing to keep up with the marketplace and to keep ahead. Now, firms that have high platform digitisation and high architecture related management practices have above average business outcomes. It's worth going on the journey. Now, we've got a poll now.
We do. What we'd like to do is get an indication from you about where you think your organisation is at in terms of their architectural maturity. You'll see a poll up on your screen at the moment. What I'd like you to do is select the one that best applies to you, then we'll be able to share the results.
Thank you, Mindy. I'm looking forward to seeing where we're sitting. It's a really interesting looking at the research that MIT CISR has done to see. Often we've got about a quarter of people sitting in a business silo, and we previously back, before 2010 had more people sitting in the standardised technology moving through into Optimised Core, but very few people achieving business modularity.
And that's what we're seeing here. We've got nearly 60% of the votes in, and no one's yet saying that they've achieved business modularity, but there is 45% each sitting in business silos and standardised technology, with 8%. Let's go 12% with an optimised core. So I'm going to shut that poll so we can share the results with you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll just share those results on your screen now. You can see there, Jasmin, is a fairly even split between business silos and standardised technology, with a little bit of the optimised core in there.
Fantastic, thank you, Mindy. And it's really interesting to look at, because it's quite a different journey, because going from business silos to standardised technology, we really want to standardise what we're doing. We want to have reliable, low-cost IT. We want to have standards that apply throughout so we know what's happening, and we want the business to be able to understand what it's going to cost them to get an IT-enabled capability. Whereas when we're looking at, once we put that in, and we want to go to an optimised core, and we want to look at business operations, we've got a different kind of change journey. So here's where we need to start having a focus on practices to drive value. Make your IT costs transparent. Make sure that you're keeping track of a process to debate architecture exceptions. Standards for technology and process platforms are fantastic. You also need an effective process that helps people to decide when and how they're going to get value from compliance with standards, and how it's going to help achieve strategic objectives. Now, as you move through and become a little more mature, post-implementation reviews are also important to get value. And we're not talking here about the post-project review. We're actually talking about a business review. Are we going to realise the benefits? Do we need to put more resources in? Or if the outcomes aren't what we expect, how do we learn from that gap and use the learnings to help us decide how we're going to invest in future in order to get business value? And in the long run, making sure that change affects our investment habits, so that we're investing in building long-term capabilities that we can reuse. And once people start to see the benefits of reuse, then their investment decision-making changes. So once we start to exploit the capabilities we have, it changes the way people make decisions about investment. So this concept, very exciting for informing how you look at change. The next concept, so we're talking here about the scope of change. So in terms of determining the scope of change that's going to deliver business value for your organisation, it needs to be looked at in the context of the architectural maturity of your digital infrastructure. Okay, so even if an organisation sees significant opportunities in implementing an enterprise process platform, if you're currently sitting in business silos, you're probably going to get business value first from looking at that journey into standardised technology with a goal of then moving into an enterprise process platform, and it's really important to think that one through. So next concept, the operating model for the organisation. Now we're talking about the operating model for the organisation or for the part of the organisation you're working with. And understanding the operating model that the organisation is using can help all the stakeholders to understand what kind of change is actually going to deliver value and what kind of digital infrastructure you need to support that change. Now, this is a model that came out in, initially in the book IT Savvy, which Peter Weill and Jeanne W. Ross, who are the principals for MIT CISR, put out in 2009. This focuses, and it's a really fantastic way to have the conversation with the organisation at a business level, because there's only two things that we're looking at here. Business process standardisation. Are you using standard processes across the organisation? And business process integration. How integrated are the data flows? So let's go through each of these four sectors. Okay, diversification, and you guys are in the business silo side of things, are probably diversified at the moment. And you've got low standardisation and low integration of business process, and in this case the big driver for people is they just need economies of scale without limiting their independence. So we've got independent businesses, different customers, different expertise, and the only thing they're really interested in is shared services that support individual businesses. So replication is where we have high standardisation of our business processes but low levels of integration. So independent similar businesses which have a shared brand. The classic example is McDonald's. So you go in there, your burger gets made exactly the same way, but they're not really interested in who the customers are and sharing information about those transactions. In this case, the big business need is standard systems and processes. Whereas when we're looking at coordination, we've got low levels of standardisation but high levels of integration. We've got unique businesses, but they really need to know about each other's transactions and relationships with customers. So in this case, we really need shared data to support customer service, decision making, integration. We need that shared data platform. And then, and here's, please don't take this as a Gartner moment and think that we should all be aiming for unification. It's just the top right, it's not number one. This is where we are talking about unification. It's business processes are highly standardised and highly integrated. So we've got one business which has global process standards and it's got global data, and we need to make sure that that's supported. And here is where we're talking about things like large global parcel firms who need to have the same processes for taking them in, taking a parcel in and ensuring it's delivered anywhere in the world, and also need the ability for anyone to look at data about where that parcel is given at any point in time. So Mindy asked the question of me earlier about how does this relate to the capability maturity model for processes? A bit, but not essentially. If your processes are mature, you're more likely to have migrated out of diversified. If your processes are not mature, you're down in the bottom left. So when we look at that kind of operating model, I'm really curious now to know, based on that conversation about business process standardisation and business process integration, where do you see your organisation sitting at the moment?
Ooh. Well, right at the moment, no one is in the, no one's picking up the replication operating model. So we've got about 20% of the votes in now, and it's 50% coordination. So those of you who are able to vote, please do so.
It's a really interesting conversation, because I know that personally, and with clients I've been working with recently, and with some of our other consultants with clients we've been working with recently, we've had this conversation about operating models, and we've had people that are working on projects where they're trying to standardise processes. They're working assuming that the organisation is operating in replication, and it's not until we've had the operating model conversation that we figure out that actually no, we need to talk data. this is a coordination operating model.
So I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll share those results with you all. What you can see there, Jasmin, is we've got 65% of people saying their operating model is coordination.
That's really interesting. So we're very data centric, and the key thing that applies there is saying, hey, the form of change that's going to deliver business value to the organisation really depends on the way the business operates. So when you're running with a coordinated business model, you need to really assess how much process work is going to support business value and how much data work is going to support business value, and make sure that you're approaching change in a way that will maximise business value for the organisation based on the way that they're operating now and based on the way that they want to operate in future. So let's get to concept 3, which is about complexity, managing complexity. And complexity is a balancing act, and we do need to make sure that we actively manage complexity within our organisations. We can't avoid it. It's creeping up on us and the world is becoming more and more complex. The cost to the organisation if we have unbridled complexity is significant, and it can actually get to the point where you prevent an organisation from being responsive enough to survive and thrive. Okay, so when we look at complexity, there's the research from Martin Mocker at CISR breaks it down into 2 primary forms of complexity. One is how complex are the processes you use. The other is how complex are the products or services that you offer. So when we look at product complexity delivers value. We've got variety, we've got choice, we're offering one-stop shopping, we're able to interlink the kinds of things that we're offering and customise them and provide a customer experience that brings people back and generates loyalty and value. However, when we look at process complexity, it can reduce value. It can be a barrier to completion of sales. It can give people a really poor experience. I think all of us have had that time where processes are awful, information doesn't go through, and we don't get the kind of experience that we want. And it can result in an organisation having an inability to deliver the products or services they need to in order to get value. So process simplification is a fantastic option for making sure that we deliver business value. Now, simplifying processes around selling or generating products tends to be a bit easier than simplifying around operation and maintenance of service and products. One of the key things here that came through is saying use business rules, use automation, find ways to simplify processes that will enable you to deliver business value without actually damaging the value that you're getting out of your products. So when managing complexity, we need to think about what kind of complexity is going to add value for the organisation. What kind of complexity allows us to get extra business value? What kind of complexity is damaging us? What is destroying value? And how are we going to manage that valuable complexity to make sure that it's costing us as little as possible? And 2 big things there, business rules and automation are your friends. So the level of complexity that delivers business value to the organisation needs to be understood, and we need to sit down and agree how we're going to manage that complexity in order to operate effectively and maximise our business value. So we've had 3 concepts so far. We've talked about our digital infrastructure, how mature we are, figuring out what kind of scope of change is going to be appropriate. We've talked about our business operating model, what form of change is going to work for the organisation, and we've talked about managing complexity. What kind of level of acceptable complexity is there, and what complexity is supporting us in delivering business value? This gives us a context for defining and agreeing what kind of IT-enabled change we need to deliver business value. Delivering it is now part of the IT value cycle. So business value is delivered by change that fits with our architectural view and supports the operating model that we're working with and works within the acceptable bounds of complexity for our organisation. So IT has been delivering value for years by planning, building and running IT solutions to enable business activities. CISR research shows that to deliver increased business value, the organisation as a whole needs to use a value cycle. Now, it's important to note here that word exploit might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Exploit is used here to describe getting maximum value. Okay, so it's not a bad word. It's just saying, hey, we want to get the maximum we can out of what we've built using the resources we have. So let's talk about each of the elements of this cycle. When we commit, we're allocating resources to ensure that we're building and leveraging strategic capabilities. So it's about making important choices based on business value, and it's an enterprise-wide responsibility. It's not something IT can do by themselves. When we talk about build, we're talking about our classic IT build, technology, processes and information-based capabilities that support our operation. When we talk about run, we're talking about all of those fantastic things that we're doing when we are providing reliable, predictably costed, well-supported operations for the business to deliver business value. When we talk about exploit, we get into the excitement of maximising value. So this is where we generate ongoing additional business value from our business and technology capability. And it's a lot easier to measure delivery from a particular change than it is to measure additional value driven from existing solutions. It's really hard for people to change, and we never get it perfect. We think, oh, well, you know, once X, Y, Z is available, we can get more value, and we tend to put this bit off. Going forward, the cycle of change is shorter. We need to make sure that we leverage what we have available today for greater value tomorrow. Waiting is not going to work. So when we look at the IT value cycle, we understand the business value that we achieve depends on committing as an enterprise to the right kind of change, and then as an enterprise operating and exploiting the solutions we're delivering to get maximum business value, and making sure that we're learning along the way, because we're not always going to get it right, and we need to make sure that we learn from what we're doing and inform the choices that we make going forward so that we increase our ability to consistently deliver business value and maximise the business value we get. So concept number 5 is about getting value from data. Now, at CISR Summer Session, we talked about multiple ways to get value from data, and one of the principal research scientists, Wilkins, shows it as a racetrack, which we need to continually run tracks on, starting with purpose, analysing data, generating insights, acting on the insights, and then making sure we've got value, and continuously going around and around on the next lap. Today, I'm just going to focus on data to improve decision making. So that's looking at data, generating insight, taking action, and using that process to improve decision making. And decision making, when we commit to allocation of resources to build capabilities, and day-to-day operational decision making. So data-informed operational decisions is where we're really talking about real-time business intelligence. So we need to be prepared for real-time BI and identify opportunities for fresh data to add value to operational decision making so we can get better business value going forward. And we also need to be prepared when we're doing this to understand decision support systems become just as essential to business operations as transactional systems once we start to use real-time business intelligence to drive business value. So if you are, also another thing to bear in mind is if you are going to provide real-time data for operational decision making, the processes that you're using need to let people actually act fast and make decisions based on that business intelligence. So if we're going to get value, look at real-time BI look at the data, look at the business rules, and look at enabling people to act on the information that they've got. Now, we've also got data-informed strategic decisions. Leveraging the data warehouse for insight can significantly contribute to our exploit and commit activities in the IT value cycle. So when we get insight into opportunities to leverage existing capabilities, so that might be using data to determine new business rules, providing better decision support operations, driving process change, and also to give us insight into where resources should be committed to achieve our strategic priorities. And also, once we start using the data, once we inform our decisions with the data quality will become a focus, and data quality can be a bit of a chicken and an egg. So use it and force improvement. So finally, rolling it all together, we have a starting conversation. We've talked about architectural maturity. Where are we right now? And what kind of change do we need to get to the next level? What kind of operating model does our organisation have? So what do we need to do to support the way that the business really operates? What kind of complexity is okay for our organisation, and how are we going to manage the complexity that's actually delivering business value and eliminate the complexity that's not contributing to the business? And then thinking about our IT value cycle. What kind of change should we be committing to? How do we build and operate that? And how do we use data to inform our exploit and commit decisions? And how do we continue to keep going around and around that cycle to generate continuous business value and maximise our business value? So fundamentally, delivering value is about committing to change that actually fits the organisational context, that fits the maturity, that fits the operation, that fits the complexity profile. It's about building solutions that support the strategic capabilities the organisation needs. It's about running those solutions, leveraging data and business rules to get value operationally, and exploiting the solution, leveraging insight and managing our business rules to make sure we maximise the business value we're getting out of the change that we're making. So MIT CISR has a rich source of resource-driven insight into IT challenges and opportunities, and I'd like to say thanks for taking the time to discuss how MIT CISR Summer Session has informed our thinking about operational success, and I suspect we might have some questions.
Yeah, so if you've got any questions, please send them through now. If you want to find out more about how Equinox IT can help you maximise business value from your IT solutions, then feel free to give us a call. The number on your screen is up on your screen at the moment, 499-9450, and talk to someone in our business change practice. Alternatively, just flick us an email at info@equinox.co.nz. We do have another webinar scheduled for early September, so you'll be able to go online after this session and register to attend a webinar that's being hosted by Greg Hunt about what it's going to take to move your organisation to the cloud. So once again, thanks for attending. We do have a couple of questions. Jazz, in New Zealand, are we guilty of not exploiting the most value from our IT platforms?
I think we are. I think we're not alone. I think it's actually a global problem, because once we've delivered what we need to deliver and we've met the minimum level of need, it's very hard to sit down and go, hey, I've got these capabilities. What other things could I do with them? How could I fit these things together to get more business value to meet different needs? It's a lot easier to go out, write a business case for a new solution and get the measurement done that way. It's quite hard to work together, business and IT, to say, hey, look at the things that we've got right now, how could we combine those to generate business value? It's a real challenge and it's a real opportunity, and I think the organisations that seize that opportunity and figure out ways to work together and maximise business value using what they have, not surprisingly, will be organisations that manage to leap ahead.
There's been a few comments come through as you've been speaking from attendees who have aspirations for their organisations to be other quadrants other than what they are. Can organisations have more than one operating model?
Yes, they can, and different areas of the organisation may have different operating models. So once again, it is really important to look at the part that you're working with. And I think there's probably two elements to this. One is addressing those people who are saying, hey, I really want my organisation to be somewhere other than where it is. Part of the answer to that is having a look at these concepts and mapping a path through them can be a really powerful way to get people to commit to change that they might not initially see as a way to get to their destination, but providing that journey and some steps along the way and focusing on how you can deliver business value as you get towards another quadrant is a good way to get engagement and buy-in. And making sure that as you do that, you're looking at the part of the business that you're working with. If you're working with people in business silos, you really need to focus on what's the operating model with the part of the organisation you're working with. There's no point trying to work with, hey, the entire organisation works this way, because you'll end up trying to make people fit into a box that they don't fit into. So use it wisely and don't try and force anything into the box.
That connects through to another question we've got here. Do you think that understanding your operating model for your business or your particular line in the business is an important first step in any business analysis activity?
I think it is, and I say that as a practitioner and talking to other practitioners in our business change practice, we've found it's one of the most powerful questions to ask people when they're finding challenges in the way that they're describing business change in a project and then finding it's not working, it's not resonating with the business, and somehow you just can't get to requirements. Often it's because the way that we're working with change doesn't align with the operating model of the business or the business area that we're working with.
Another question through from a participant. Is an operating model of diversification more likely to encourage a business silo architecture?
Yes, they're quite related to each other. If you're focused on real-time return on investment, looking at immediate business problems, and you've got a whole lot of essentially independent businesses and who don't have interconnected activities and aren't interested in shared processes or shared data, it's highly likely that if you look at the entire organisation, you'll see business silos. But within those business silos, you may actually find different models operating. And if you treat them as an independent business, you might find that they have, some of them may be operating as coordinated with quite mature infrastructure within that particular area of the organisation. So it's important to look in the context of what you're working with. If you're working with the entire organisation, have a look at the entire organisation. If you're only working with part of it, don't try and determine the future and the structure of the whole organisation. Look at the part that you're working with. Look at the part in which you are going to be affecting change, because that's the part that's relevant.
So if your organisation is operating in business silos, focus first on the part of the organisation that you're able to influence and able to change. How would you then go about increasing the architectural maturity outside of your project or your line of business? How would you engage others?
I think it's almost a process of infection. One is, if your area is managing to affect change and delivering greater business value, you're controlling costs, you're providing better quality, and you're talking about that to other parts of the organisation, it will become desirable, because wherever you are, people have problems that they want to resolve, and if they see someone else answering those problems, they will come to you to explore it.
So be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. Stephen and others who have asked during the presentation, Amanda, yes, the presentation will be able to be distributed to you all at some point next week. We'll make that available, and you'll receive notification about how to get access to that for those people in the team who were not able to attend, or for other people you want to infect with the change you want to be in the world. So thanks so much for joining with us today. Jasmin, thank you so much for sharing your insights from MIT, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon on the next webinar with Greg Hunt at the beginning of September. Have a good afternoon.